Mal in Australia, way down under, says, I have a theory. Me too. I got a few of them. All right. Mal has a theory that global feedback in audio applications is evil. The problem is that I can't prove it. The idea that poor frequency response can be rectified through a global negative feedback without penalty seems naive. I believe sonically there must be a compromise. I wonder if you have ever considered this, or am I the only one who's actually losing sleep? Mal, you're not wrong at all. But losing sleep over feedback? I love it. The people in audio in our field I just adore, because how many people lose sleep over feedback? I can admit to waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and thinking about feedback. I can admit to waking up almost every morning at about 3 o'clock and start thinking about octave records, how best to master, how best to record. We're crazy. So, yeah, let's talk about feedback. First off, let me say something that maybe needs to be said. There is nothing wrong with feedback per se, okay? Nothing wrong with feedback per se. So let's talk about what that is. Feedback is essentially in its simplest form, it's like a balanced cable, all right? So here's a way to look at it. I've talked about this before, and you know that I have said many times I prefer balanced cables. And I prefer balanced cables because of what's called common mode rejection. So a balanced cable over an RCA cable, a single-ended cable, a balanced cable has two conductors, a shield, and a ground. A single-ended cable has, can't use that finger. A single-ended cable has one conductor, a shield, and that acts as a ground. Okay. Now, in the single-ended cable, as we've talked about before, despite its shield, if you're running past some, like magnetic fields or something that the shield doesn't help against, or kind of noise that gets through the shield, that's picked up on that conductor and amplified throughout the chain. And that's why those cables they're noisier. In pro applications like here at Octave Records, in studios all over the world, in the best high-end home audio systems, we use balance cables. Why? Well, because the two conductors, they are just as prone as the single conductor to picking up noise. So these two conductors pick up the same noise. But the difference is that the signal that we hope to keep, while A is moving up, B is moving down. So it's the same signal, but they're going like this. And when we put those into a difference amplifier, it amplifies, wait for it, only the difference. That's why it's called a difference amplifier. Anything in common is ignored, okay? Now, that's common mode rejection. That's why balanced cables work and have lower noise, sound better, all that kind of good stuff. Feedback is doing kind of the same thing. Feedback generally uses at least global feedback in its most common form. There are tons of forms. There's local feedback, there's degenerative feedback, there's all kinds of stuff. But let's just take loop feedback. For the typical construction of an amplifier, you have a difference amplifier that has two inputs, the non-inverting input and the inverting input, which is the same two inputs that we would normally put our balanced cable into, right? And when we put our balanced cable in, it ignores everything in common and it gets rid of anything that is different. Well, if we take the same input, but now we take the output of our amplifier, loop it back around, and compare it to the input to the amplifier, everything that is the same is ignored, and everything that is different is thrown out. And that could be distortion, something the amp is doing, noise, whatever. And that's how feedback works. It works the same as a balanced cable. It uses the same differential input, okay? So A, there's nothing wrong with that. B, it's good. We like it. Now, let's talk about his question. In fact, you know, sometimes we did this with Arnie's speaker. I get to rambling and rambling and a ranting. And then it gets to be too long, and then we've got to break it up into part 2. So let's do that. Let's make this one relatively short. And tomorrow, I'm going to do a part 2 for you. And so today we learned about how feedback kind of works. That feedback is, in the simplest form, the open loop, the closed loop. We take, and there are other things that it does that I will explain in the next video. But it is essentially the same as using the common mode characteristics of a differential amplifier to eliminate anything that's different. And in an amplifier, in a cable, what's different is the induced noise and crap, right? In an amplifier, the difference is the amplifier itself. And that's what's making up. And that is what we're going to talk about tomorrow, so that you can get a full picture of how feedback itself is fine, and under the proper circumstances, have as much as you want. And under most circumstances, it is evil. Yeah. Okay. Talk to you tomorrow.